Aslam o alaikum Muslim cat family. Bedtime story. In the year 1187, the desert winds carried whispers of war across the sand of the Holy Land. Armies marched beneath blazing suns, and cities trembled at the sound of steel. Yet, in the middle of this storm, stood a man whose name would echo through history, Saladin. Far from the battlefield, in a small village near Jerusalem, lived a young boy named Yusuf. Every evening, he sat beside his grandfather, listening to stories about courage, faith, and mercy. But lately, the stories had changed. Travelers arrived with fearful eyes, speaking of crusaders, sieges, and bloodshed. One night, Yusuf asked, "Grandfather, why do men fight over holy places?" The old man sighed deeply. "Because they forget that holiness is not in stones alone, but in how we treat one another." Days later, drums thundered across the hills. Saladin's army had surrounded Jerusalem. Villagers feared the worst, remembering the massacre that had happened decades earlier when the city was first captured during the Crusades. Yusuf's family packed their belongings, preparing to flee. But before dawn, a messenger rode into the village carrying unexpected news. Jerusalem had surrendered peacefully. No slaughter, no revenge. The villagers could hardly believe it. Curious, Yusuf followed the crowds into the city days later. The streets were tense but calm. Christian families were being allowed to leave safely. Some poor families who could not pay ransom were freed anyway by Saladin's orders. Near the gates, Yusuf saw an exhausted old woman weeping beside a broken cart. Her husband was sick, and she feared they would never make the journey home. To Yusuf's surprise, a group of Muslim soldiers stopped to help her. One offered water, another repaired the wheel. Then, quietly, a commander handed the woman several gold coins. "Who are you?" she asked through tears. The commander smiled softly. "Servants of God." That evening, Yusuf stood in the courtyard of the city, watching lanterns flicker against ancient walls. He realized something powerful. True strength was not only winning battles, it was showing mercy when vengeance was easy. Years later, Yusuf became a scholar who traveled across lands, telling the story of Jerusalem's peaceful surrender. Many expected tales of conquest and glory. Instead, he spoke about compassion. "History remembers kings for their victories," he would say, "but generations remember them for their character." And whenever he spoke the name of Saladin, people listened, not because he was feared, but because even his enemies respected his honor. The desert winds continued to move across the centuries, carrying with them a lesson from Islamic history. Mercy can outlive war. Good night.